David, Sarah, welcome to Parasocial, the people behind the protocols. Tell us a little about yourself and what's your role at SWE?
I guess I'll go first. And so I'm David. I work here on the ecosystem team. Been involved with SWE since like close to like the very beginning. So originally it was like an angel investor into Miston, and yeah, met the team when they were leaving like Facebook, and heard like the vision of what they were going to build. And I thought like, oh, this is clearly like the best like tech and team I've seen building a blockchain. Like most teams have like one technical founder and a business founder, but SWE had like founders in all the different disciplines you need to build like a blockchain. So you had a founder that specializes in programming languages, cryptography, product, consensus, and yeah, it's really rare to find like a team that has like a stacked group of people that work well together for multiple years and have that expertise in all these different domains.
Awesome. And then I'm Sarah. I also work on the ecosystem team here at SWE. My background was actually in gaming. I came over from Unity, the 3D gaming engine, and there was a lot of talk back then about how do we get NFTs involved with gaming, like what does that kind of look like in a decentralized ecosystem. So that's how I found my way over to SWE, started on the gaming side, and then transitioned more into ecosystem since it was more ability to see what else was going on, like from DeFi, from tokenization, and I really love what we've been doing here. Just SWE has the technology that's really going to put us into the next part of the future with just everything from the agentic side, DeFi, and excited to just see how it grows from there. But the technology was really the focus, and I think that's really the main differentiator from any kind of other tech stack that you'd be building with.
Amazing. And I happen to interface with you both, given our work with SWE. So it's I feel like you guys are one of the more focused ecosystem teams that we interface with. So it's been a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about how the SWE ecosystem has been growing these days, given both your vantage points on the ecosystem team.
Yeah, I guess on this our side, like, we're heavily focused on finance and payments like right now, and so yeah, we're doing a lot of like growth on ourselves and bringing on like really talented like teams to go after these sectors. And we're also spending a lot of time on like AI side too, of how like agents will be using crypto in the future. And yeah, so right now like Miston is like building a bunch of new protocols, and one is like deep book like predict. There's also Hashi, which is like a way to bring Bitcoin safely into DeFi. And yeah, we're having a lot of teams like building in the RWA space like right now. So people building, bringing on like tokenized like stocks and real world assets. And yeah, stablecoins is like a major focus for us too.
Yeah, for sure. And then, in addition to kind of David's points, I think it's really interesting that we're kind of having all of the ecosystem players from the infrastructure side to make sure that we play well with everybody. So when a team does want to build with SWE, they have everything they need at their disposal. We talk a lot with teams in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco because we see a lot of really cool innovation happening on the crypto and AI intersection, and just how people are thinking about stablecoins. I think that's been a really interesting piece, especially with agentic transactions. It's like even when you're going outside of the US, it's like how are you going to pay people and how do you make those rails move really quickly and smoothly without all of the intermediary fees. Which is also something really interesting on SWE right now because we just release gasless stablecoin transfers on the entire network. So no matter what stablecoin you're using, you will not incur any fees. So that's like one of the things that we wanted to do to make sure it's easy for people building on the payment side to work with SWE and actually integrate.
Very cool. One thing you guys both mentioned is on the agentic piece. We see a lot of teams building with standards like X402, MVP. There's a bunch of them. Are you guys seeing kind of spikes in those areas in terms of the agentic commerce happening on SWE? Are you also thinking about your own standard? Yeah, just curious what the trend there has looked like.
Yeah, I guess we're exploring like right now, and I guess we'll make announcements on like on this. But I guess our team has been looking at all the different standards that exist and if we should release our own.
No. And something that the CTO on the Miston side, Sam Blackshear, has kind of like ideated when he was building the Move language was if in the future, like what he called bots were going to be one of the main users of the internet, like how do we optimize just Rails for them? So I think he's always thought of like, well, now what we call agents, what he thought was bots, like how do we make it easy for anyone on the internet to actually access all of these tools and make it easier for them to transact, especially if they're not actually being controlled by a human.
That makes sense. And one thing you mentioned about Miston's focus on Move specifically and that innovation that came out of Libra, what does that architecture on Suite generally enable for teams building in the fintech space and the payment space? And you mentioned RWAs as well. What does that architecture specifically enable, or what have you seen?
Yeah, I guess like Move's always been like easier for developers to wrap their heads around and build quicker, and also have all these like security guarantees in there. So like the history of Move was when they were at Facebook, like it was Sam's task and the whole team to look at like what existed in programming languages for smart contracts, and they felt like all the existing options weren't good enough. There was like security vulnerabilities, like reentrancy attacks in the EVM. They couldn't use Rust because it wasn't a purpose-built language for like smart contracts, and so they ended up like going down the Move route and building a language purpose-built for actual ownership. But by building like, a language purpose-built for that, like it was, they also really heavily focused on like developer experience. And yeah, the feedback we've got from like every single developer we've ever worked with was like that developing on Sui is actually fun. It's like one of our builders said like building on some other chains, it's like chewing glass. Building on Sui is like chewing puree. It's pleasant, it's fun, and it really is like a 10x increase in developer like speed. And there's also like some security companies have done like reports that there's like 20 plus vulnerabilities that exist on other virtual machines but don't exist on Move. And so, yeah, so you get both developer experience along with the security guarantees. And SWE also has these really interesting things called like PTBs, programmable transaction blocks, and allows you to do like 1,024 transactions at once. And so we have a lot of our DeFi teams really love using that, and I think even the world of agents will really love using PTBs.
Oh yeah. Before I add on, what does chewing on puree mean? What is puree?
Oh, like the food, like puree, like it's
What is
like a
that?
puree. Like, oh, it's like a
Oh,
soft.
puree.
Yeah,
I was
Okay.
thinking like Perrier, like the water. I'm like you're chewing on sparkling water. So I was like, wow, like what a cool new word that I've learned from David.
yeah.
Yeah, I was also like, oh, maybe I missed that. Okay, interesting.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, very, very cool. One, you touched on this a little bit, that move and the the language overall was spun out of some of the DM efforts. Um, how was that kind of how was that orchestrated? Like, do you have any backstory on that? I'm actually very curious on how there was an internal push to actually create a new language. Like, was it just really the DevX that the team found was lacking, or were there other sort of pain points that they identified that?
Yeah, it was security and
Okay,
developer experience were like the big things, and like Sam, like our CTO, was the original like creator of Move when they were at Facebook, and like so yeah, he's like heavily passionate about like on this topic, and so and that was like the thing that made Sui and Miston highly appealing was like this is like the team that created like Move, and
and obviously we've seen Move also be adopted by other chains, so it's just kind of really extensible is what we are finding building with it. That it's just such an extensible framework that can be applied to a variety of different applications. So very, very cool. Sarah, sorry, I might have cut you off on something. Did you have anything to add on that
Oh,
question?
I guess in addition to like what David said, a lot of things on Move. I think when you, it's hard to kind of conceptualize when you're like, oh, I have to learn a new language. So a lot of people kind of maybe default to Solidity or to Rust because that's something that's like very well known. But since Move is like a derivative of Rust. I think it's easier, like it maybe takes 2 weeks for a developer to really get caught up on it. And especially with Claude Code and Codex and all of these agents, like they can actually just code in Move by itself now, like as long as there's solid docs and other like projects to reference. But what we've noticed with a lot of people is people really like that it's object oriented and it's not account based. So then that's especially great for gaming with NFTs. And now what we can see with real world assets, like you can assign everything as an object. So I think that's really interesting. The token standard is super open. There's only really two kinds of token standards, like it's closed loop and open loop. So for developers, it's like you can just do whatever you want. Like you're not stuck with anything like on ERC, like XYZ. Like you don't have to specify which kind of token that you want to use. You can just like do anything that you actually can imagine. And then from what David said too, like PTBs, like you can execute things very quickly. So if something needs to be done like successively, like you have to have this transaction which is based on a previous one, and if one of them fails, then none of them actually go through. The PTB actually sends all of them through together, so that you actually know that everything's going to happen. So that's really great for commerce or things that need to be done really quickly or all dependent on each other.
And was the adoption of PTBs in this like fintech payments cohort that you guys have been focusing on, did that inform the gasless announcement, the subsidizing of all the gas?
David, you might have more insight on this. I don't think they're related. I think just separately, they're both helpful for people moving things around.
Yeah, I guess PTBs like date back to even like pre-mainnet. Like we had like a team that was like wanting to build like a central limit order book in on Sui, and that's where like PTBs came in. And yeah, I guess like for the payments, like it was already like really cheap to send like money anywhere in the world on Sui, and you might as well just like make it free.
Yep, that makes complete sense. A few categories that we see a lot of teams build in is the remittance category. We see a lot of real world assets as well, pay-ins, payouts, and I've been tracking a lot of Sui's latest partnerships. So Paga comes to mind, Revolut adding Sui staking comes to mind as well. Um, what has stuck out about those launches, and did you find that any of those teams really chose Sui for specific reasons like PTBs or the any properties of the chain that are worth highlighting here?
Yeah, I guess definitely like teams choose like Sui because they feel it is like the best tech that exists, and it's like it's cheap, it's fast, and it does that better than anyone else. I think a lot of these teams that we're working with like are also using like how the Sui ecosystem too. That there's all these RWAs and DeFi that's happening. And we were finding that these companies that we're working with are wanting exposure to our ecosystem of being able to yeah bring what they do best, but also rely on some of the other partners, and that's what you get when you build on like a public blockchain like Sui, that you have the composability and access to all this other stuff that's happening on Sui.
Yeah, and especially to your point, Aditi, on Paga, it's kind of great to see such a big player that wants to integrate with Sui. Especially, I think they moved like $11 billion last year, and they've had millions upon millions of transactions. And it's great to see that they're interested in offering other things to their ecosystem, like having just yield through USD Sui, and like offering consumers things that they weren't able to access before, and then having just like instant settlement, having it be free. I think that's really appealing to a lot of fintechs, even if they weren't traditionally in crypto, and especially when they need to do cross-border payments, because not everyone plays the same with like regulations, as especially like throughout Africa and really the entire world.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. One thing, David, that stuck out to me in your response is partners building on Sui for access to the broader ecosystem. I know that's something you both think about a lot in your day to day. How do you create those touch points between partners? Is it through community? Is it through strategic partnerships? I know Sarah, you focus on that as well. Um, how do you think about that as the ecosystem has grown so fast in the last year or so?
Yeah, it's for like both, and we find like our ecosystem be very collaborative. I guess we've seen like some of our ecosystems that some builders will be like have rivalries between each other. Like I guess our builders have, even that are competing in similar areas, like get along, and even our builders are quite collaborative and are willing to like introduce other new teams to the Sui ecosystem. And so I think it's a very like friendly ecosystem to be a part of. That the builders are collaborative. They came here because they thought Sui is like the best place to build, and is highly differentiated. And yeah, so I think like our builders are quite friendly like, with each other and build partnerships of our own.
But
Yeah.
you guys also do like community programs, right? I think Sarah, you're a little closer to that. What does that look like?
Yeah, we have a couple of different programs, some of them being like more accelerator focused, so then we put cohorts together so they can learn from each other, have closer ties to people internally to like Mistin and Sui, and just really like dive into how to build and how to build the best, and ultimately launch and then become self-sustaining. Something that we've also like invited you to and like some other people local to the Bay Area is like the dinners that we host and getting people to know each other. We think that kind of in-person connection really helps, especially when people are building maybe complementary products, or just getting mentorship from people that are have been founders before or earlier, or just getting connections that way. So we really like having the community of people like either globally and especially in SF kind of come together so they can actually like start interacting with each other and seeing what else could be there that they haven't thought of before. And I think that's been really powerful too.
It's a big part, I think, of bringing on a fintech or a payments company to your protocol. Just that connection point. I think that's something that we've found super helpful as an info provider on Sui. But also, a lot of the fintechs we work with don't actually know what blockchain to use, what card provider to use, et cetera. And so it's a great way to kind of route and construct these stacks. I was curious about the Paga use case in a bit more detail. I know they moved 11 billion last year and chose to route everything through Sui. Um, what makes remittances such a good fit for Sui? And I know we've touched on this a little bit, but just to go into detail on the Paga use case, and I think we had mentioned I think David, you had mentioned specifically that they're also doing tokenization. So curious, like why Sui and what resonated really well for this sort of use case.
Yeah, I guess like this team has always had like been heavily focused on like payments for the world. So like even like the whole vision of DM and like Libra was about having like this global like payment like system and sending money around the world and doing it for much cheaper than what exists like currently. And so like, the team has been like always like highly passionate and like still like one of like the areas that we're most like bullish on for like crypto is like the use of stable coins and for payments. So I think it was like a well made match and also like those benefits of that they get through our ecosystem partners that like they can also like offer uh, their customers to have access to like different RWAs they don't have it currently, and there's already announcements related to that their user base now has access to some things that exist on Sui, and so I think you'll continue to see I guess like announcements related to that.
Yeah, and also just the founder's story behind Paga is super interesting. He presented at, I think, one of our more recent conferences when we did like Sui in Miami. But he talked about how he had to take a friend to the emergency room, and the doctors told them like, you have to pay us in cash, like we don't take anything else. So him and all of their friends had to line up one by one at the ATM to like max out the cash withdrawal that they could take, so they could pay for like her surgery or whatever was going on. So from there, he was like, we need to fix the system because it is not working for us. So I think it's just like a real powerful story of how this actually works in real life, like why we need to have like instant settlement. You can't wait days. Like people are lining up to get cash in many countries, and it's just not a system that works for anybody. So especially like integrating Sui, you're offering not just like the rails that Paga already has, but alternatives and something that's very like complementary to their offering. It's like how do we get things faster, like when you need it, when it needs to be stable coins. There's no fees to the user, and I think their vision is also to very much abstract the crypto away. Like the user doesn't care, like the user just wants it to work. So any way in which we can help people just make their lives easier, make their costs lower, and like actually cause impact to them saving money or making money is really powerful, and it's something that we focus on, especially with the USD Suite. Like if people wanted to have passive savings account, especially in stable coins, like that's going to be a something that's generating like something for actual customers that they don't have to be scared about. It's not like a 15% that no one knows where it comes from. It's like it's very like stable way of just putting your money to work.
I was actually going to ask about USD Suite and what stable coins you see resonate a lot with people building on Suite. I assume it's USD Suite, but I'm curious if there's other ones that you see spike in certain markets or if there's any trends there.
So I think like overall, I think yeah, I guess USD Sui is popular, but like USDC still continues to be like very popular on the chain. And I guess there's other like stable coins that are coming too that have like a very broad adoption that are coming to Sui shortly.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it feels like there's like a variety of different new stable coins that are also coming out. OUSD is one that we're tracking. There's a few others. And so um, my perspective, I think the more that all of this is abstracted from the user so they actually don't know what they're parking their money in and just seeing it earn or seeing APY on top of their balance, as you mentioned, Sarah, the better. But I am curious to see kind of if there's preferences in certain markets or with certain verticals that you guys see. So very cool to hear that. Um, I'm curious, and because you guys are seeing so many different ecosystem teams build with Sui and kind of form their stacks, as you mentioned, what does the kind of ideal consumer-facing fintech look like on Sui 18 months out from now? What do you expect? What are the product features? What's the UX?
Yeah, I think the UX you like hinted at, it won't be like how traditional like wallets are like right now in crypto. That it'll be a more abstracted version of crypto. That you get all the performance benefits, the cheapness of like crypto, but don't have to go for like the user onboarding. That can be like really hard for a non-crypto person. So that's why we like launch features like ZK login. That abstraction is always like heavily suited for like making crypto go like be adopted mass because yeah, you need to simplify it and abstract away all this complexity. And I guess like how like crypto wallets are usually in general today won't be like how the mainstream audience is going to be using crypto in the future. So it's definitely going to happen. But it probably won't happen in the way that like crypto's been built over like the last like cycles.
Yeah, I especially think anything consumer facing is really interesting. I think there's a lot more traction with like more B2B to C or having people like utilize crypto or crypto tools within their actual like finance systems internally. Like if you're managing your treasury or if you're trying to do other things like paying vendors, like that's a very useful use case. And there's a couple of teams that are kind of building for that, especially like with agents that can go through like every kind of purchase you've ever done or figuring out like which ones are late. I think those are really interesting. But at least on the consumer side, it's like I want to see maybe something that is very abstracted. Like you use a sort of savings app and you don't know it's crypto, but you do know that it's safe to some extent. Because I think a lot of people have had the rug pulled from under them when it's like, oh, like you're promising me like 100% APY, and then one day like I'm locked out of my account, my money is gone. So it's like, how do you build back that trust with like consumers who don't know it's crypto, or how do you make them like see the benefit in it, especially in the U.S. since we have access to like normal USD and just also a lot of things on the stock market. Like, how do you make that appealing to people here, and whether that be like putting some sort of savings account like in a consumer app, like when you have to do. Have you ever seen the thing where you buy like a loot box for a watch and then you get like a certain value? It could be above like the $50 you spent or below, and then you can sell it back to the
Totally.
platform. But it's like stuff like that. It's like, what if you had a savings account within that app? So then there's certain APY behind the scenes that are actually like, I don't know, like linked to USD Sui, and then you're actually making more money on your account by just having it in the platform. I think there could be really cool applications like that happening, where people like don't actually know it's a thing. It's like you just like to consume something that you thought was interesting.
I think this concept of wealth layering is so big, especially for remittance businesses and embedded finance businesses. And I think it's to your point, what you're saying is really compelling. Like one thing that we've seen in practice is a remittance team that is optimizing for corridors like EU to LATAM. they're really excited by offering tokenized US stocks because now grandma in Mexico can hold on to her assets and have that be kind of automatically invested into the US stock market, which is really valuable. And so I think the like what you get with composability and some of the elements on Sui is really, really interesting. And it's cool to hear that that you're yeah, like we're seeing kind of apps getting built out in this way in the ecosystem. David, I caught your interview with CoinDesk a year ago. It was very well done. You spoke a little bit about the various elements of SWE, like the security, the cryptography, the identity. Privacy was something you mentioned as well. And the fact that all of this kind of comes together in SWE rather than being like different things you need to bolt on. Which of those have you been finding unlock something for teams building on SWE that isn't really obvious to them when they first start out?
Yeah, I guess like that's one of the other unique things about us. We have like a whole tech stack behind us, and there's like new use cases that we've come across and like teams are finding. I guess one of the big stories right now is like Walrus, like memory, that there's people using that for having AI agents to have memories of like things that happened using other agents, and so I think like things like Walrus memory shows like a that yeah that SWE isn't just a blockchain. There's all these other things that are built around it that help build these new experiences. So we're seeing a lot of like new like AI companies like starting to build on SWE, and they often use Walrus, and pretty much all of our AI companies that are building on SWE also use the Walrus tech stack. And like Talus is like another AI agent company doing that. So yeah, I think that's it enables like a better experience for developers, and yeah, they don't have to go searching. That our tech stack has it pretty much all these different things that don't that other teams and projects will have to yeah don't have access to. So I think that's like one of the things that really makes Sweet special is yeah that we have this whole tech stack here.
Yeah. And it definitely depends on what you're building because there's kind of different products for different things. Like Walrus memory is great, especially as a backup, because it shards the memory into different places. So then if something goes down, like you're always going to be able to recover it. And then there's also
Oh,
tools
like
like,
recover context.
yes.
Oh,
So
very
then,
cool.
yeah, so I think
Okay.
that's one of the big differentiators because there are a lot of like kind of memory companies out there already. So it's like if you really do need the backup and you want to make sure it's not lost forever, like this is the perfect solution for you. But then also given that we have like Nautilus and Seal, that's more on the privacy side. Seal is access control, and Nautilus actually does off-chain computation. So if you need to prove that something happened, you can do it off-chain, and then Nautilus will come back and say like, yes, this actually happened. So a lot of cool things within what the product teams are building, so then they can make things easier for institutions to adopt, especially on the privacy side. I think Sui Spheres has been kind of teased a little bit, so then it's like a private instance, so then institutions can feel okay with not having all of their data just shared on the blockchain. And then just even on the builder side, it's like, how do we adapt all of like the docs that we have and make things easy for people to learn and easy for AIs to actually use, so then they can code for you.
Hmm. And I'm sure now, given the state of AI, getting people to learn Move is probably pretty simple. I'm sure you have a skills strategy or something where people can easily, or even like a compiler where you could just move over your code to Move. Is that part of the funnel now, just given all the AI things going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a team like focusing on how people develop with AI now, because like we find like pretty
Cool.
much everyone develops with AI, and even like internally we use it. Like so, yeah, we have a whole strategy and team like working to make sure like the experiences using AI development like is up to date and works.
Yeah. I think also with one caveat being like I went to the conference that Open Zeppelin held, and they talked about like smart contracts aren't really exploited because the code is bad. It's exploited because the humans writing the code were bad at writing it. So a lot of it is like even if you can do things with AI, like you still need to be very meticulous, like with making sure that your architecture and everything like makes sense and you're not just leaving vulnerabilities randomly. Because we've seen just throughout the industry that people are getting attacked because there's just one little thing that nobody noticed, but someone's AI did, and then that's how they got compromised. So I think it's really important for people to like think about security top of mind, even if you're building on something as secure as Move, because it's usually human error, not the code itself.
Has that changed your developer kind of funnel at all as teams move over to Move? It sounds like you have a team focusing on this, but has that changed at all with AI, with auditing best practices and
We've seen. Yeah, I was even talking to like one of our auditors like earlier today, and like they have like automated a lot of their how they do audits and formal verification. And so we've seen like auditors like, have built like really good tools that can identify like issues that, and yeah, both on the smart contract audit side and formal verification, like a lot of it is becoming automated and can find these like exploits that aren't found by just doing just a eye test by a human. So yeah, we're finding that yeah, AI is being used by people to find issues, but the auditors are getting much better at building these tools, and it's also like the cost of these audits and formal verification is becoming like much cheaper by having all these new automated tools that a team can just run this on their code and find like if there's any fixes that have to be done. And so yeah, we're seeing our teams are heavily focused on that right now, and our auditors and our ecosystem.
very cool. I didn't actually realize costs were going down, but that makes a lot of sense in terms of why. Um, Going back to a point, Sarah, you mentioned about Seal and Walrus. Um, are you finding that these tools in combination are being used by a lot of agent teams? What parts of the Sui stack are teams resonating to, and why, specifically in this like agentic commerce space?
Yeah, for sure. I think it really depends on like what they're building because some tools like you just wouldn't need like ZK login if you want OAuth, and then like setting up a wallet like that's going to be maybe more consumer facing. But especially with Walrus, like Walrus memory is really interesting to people at least on the AI side. I think that's probably the best use case. So we have the Walrus team that's always open to conversations. Like they're talking to big enterprises all the time of like how do we actually integrate this into your stack because it's something that doesn't exist elsewhere. And even just smaller startups in San Francisco, it's like everyone's very interested in AI and they're all AI pilled. So it's like, okay, like how do we get this in front of people and get people aware of a product that they didn't before? But I think that's probably the best use case. Like I think at least with agentic memory, Walrus is being used, and then Seal helps just with access control, so the right people are accessing the information and being able to make changes. And then Nautilus is off-chain compute. So then that kind of goes more onto the more crypto side and maybe more institutional. But all three of those kind of align very well with what they've been made. And for some reason, they also have all been named after water animals, and we don't know why they did that because I feel like you could also just call it like Sui access control and that would be very descriptive. But instead it's Seal. Seal also kind of works because it's like, oh, I sealed it. But then we have Walrus and
Oh, I didn't
Nautilus.
catch that.
And
Yeah,
just,
I guess part of the reasoning behind that is like sui means water in Japanese,
Oh,
and
does
so
it?
that's
Okay.
yeah. And then I guess
Hence
like
the logo, the little droplet. Got it.
yeah, then
Oh,
George, our chief scientist, and
yeah.
the research team like naming it after aquatic animals, and yeah, that's always been what we've done.
if you look in our docs about like recent releases, they'll pick the most obscure names, like Mysticetti. Like Mysticetti is a kind
Oh,
of whale, and I was like, why would you do that? One time it was like a password for the Wi-Fi, and I couldn't spell it. I had to look it up, and I was like, this is awful. But they'll just do other water animals. We have capybara. That's not really a water animal. It's like a mammal. We have bull
right.
shark. So maybe there'll be a contest of who can suggest the best next water animal name for Mistin to release.
And you also have Walrus. Don't you have Walrus the wallet as well?
No, that's Slush now. It used to be Sui Wallet, but they
Oh,
named it Slush because their ideation was like, oh, it's like a slush fund. So yeah.
okay. Because I was gonna say those. Okay, got it, got it. Very cool. And yeah, I mean, this was top of mind for me because a lot of agentic workflows do require things like access control and permissions. That's one thing that I still like cannot wrap my head around is just depositing funds into a wallet controlled by an agent and just letting it go buck wild
Yeah.
just seems yeah, it seems like there still needs to be a little bit more in terms of guardrails around what it can do and what it can't do. So,
No, 100%. Because I've seen people like put out their products. They're like, oh, our agent like spins up a separate card, so it's not using your real credit card. But you still have to approve it, which I think is like the best fail safe. It's like they can't spend money until you press the button that says like you can spend money.
yeah,
But at some point, the AI is going to hallucinate and be like, "Oh, you told me to spend the money." I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that.
right. Prompt injections, another thing. Yeah, it's just, it's all, it's something that we think a lot about with, we've a transaction permissions product that does a little bit of this, but still, I think baking that deeper into the chain level is really interesting because then you just get this kind of end-to-end stack that you can just build with at the get-go.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and then about the developer experience we talked a little bit about, are you finding that the teams building on Sui are net new kind of teams? Are they teams that might like a Paga where they have like an existing business and are just like upgrading their Rails to something like a Sui? What's the breakdown if you had to assign?
Yeah, it's a mix of it all. We've had like teams come from other ecosystems. Some like had EVM experience with like SVM, and yeah, we've had teams that are building in crypto for the first time, and so it's like a mix that we I guess like, have people coming from all over the place that have prior crypto experience or just found that they were going at it in crypto for the first time because they saw the need for it for their like traditional company, and so it's all over the place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with like personal relationships, especially with some of the deal makers on our teams. It's like if you know people from like a past life, or especially since a lot of people have worked in like TradFi at banks, like in VCs, like they have all these connections across crypto and across different ecosystems. Like David's very involved in the Solana ecosystem, so he's always like red pilling people to come over to Sui from over there. And I also think that we've talked to a lot of teams where they're like, actually we built on like XYZ chain and their technology cannot handle what we want to do. So we're like forced to migrate it. And that's a decision no one ever really wants to take. It's like you don't want to move an entire code base. Like if you have 11,000 lines of code on EVM and you've done all of your security audits, moving it over to another chain like could be the death of the company. So I think one of our biggest approaches is making sure that we get in early with any team, so we can like help evaluate what actually makes sense and then build together. Because I think having that kind of cohesive build together mindset really helps make the product better and stronger. And then we find out more things about how we can actually make this more of a success.
Mm-hmm. And something I appreciate about Sui is that there's, at least in our experience building in the ecosystem, there's never been any sort of like forcing of you must do this. It's always a conversation, and I think you guys balance that really, really well. Um, David, one thing that caught my attention is the Solana ecosystem experience you have. What does that conversation look like to convince someone building in another chain ecosystem to build on Sui? What are the things that stand out? What do you talk about? Is it the community aspect? Is it the tech aspect? I'm sure you've had a lot of these conversations, so curious to hear more.
Yeah, so I was at the firm that was like one of the seed investors for Solana, and I even held like one of the first like in-person Solana events. So yeah, I guess like a lot of the early Solana like developers I've met, and like the ones still building there, like I think we're not just like Solana maxis. I guess they all describe themselves as like tech maxis, that they're like interested in like what are like the new like technical developments. Are there things that are better than what exists now? And that's why some of those builders left the EVM space earlier. So I think a lot of our builders like that are building on Sui build here because they feel Sui is the best tech in the market. It does things differently, and it's not just a copy and paste chain. It's doing something totally new, and so that's what we've seen. Like our developers that are here are definitely love being here and came here not just because they got like some massive grant. They came here because like they fell in love with the tech and building on Sui, and so that's like the thing that I guess makes us that really unique. It's
What are ways in which you're kind of hoping the Sui ecosystem grows from both the infrastructure standpoint and the use case standpoint?
Yeah, I think the big thing is like finding like, interesting applications like for people. So there's a ton of like infra in crypto, and there's always like people building infra. But I guess crypto is at the point now that like blockchains can scale to serve like millions of people. It's not like last cycle that people
Mm-hmm.
are trying to mint their NFTs and paying like $10,000 gas fees. Like crypto now can scale, and so it's now finding those use cases and those apps. So I think even a lot of the investors that I talk to feel like the infra side has mostly been solved for like crypto. It's now about finding all these use cases and focusing on the app layer. So I think like that's been, I guess, what most of the focus is, and especially on like the areas of like finance and AI and payments are things being heavily focused on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
No, great points made by David. I think consumer has always been really interesting. I think it's a really hard niche to kind of target. Like a lot of people have tried to do crypto consumer and failed, but now we see that like poly market and prediction markets are really big, and that kind of blends like the finance and the consumer side. And we're seeing a lot with like the trading card games. If you've ever been like on any of those platforms where they tokenize like the card pack, and then the same kind of you can buy it outright and have it shipped to you, or you can like keep it on the platform and just have it as a tokenized version. So I think there's going to be really interesting things happening with tokenization, RWAs, like bringing assets to other people that never had them before, whether it be like fine art or things that just aren't accessible, especially in the nowadays age where like people can't afford to like really buy a lot of things outright. But if you have fractional ownership, I think that's really interesting, especially with RWAs, since there is an asset behind it, or at least there should be, in a way that like a lot of DeFi yield, you're like, I don't really know where this is coming from. But just even from the DeFi side, it's like savings has always been really huge, and giving people the ability to save in a currency that doesn't depreciate, I think is really powerful and something that everyone's been really focused on since the beginning, especially just with giving access to the financial market to the entire world. It's like if we can do that in the best way, and if we can actually get people to use it and feel safe about using it, I think that's going to be the biggest use case for crypto.
One thing, as you both were talking about the use cases that stuck out to me is, do you see a breakdown of more mobile apps being built on Sui versus web? Because I feel like the properties of Sui make it such a good environment for mobile experiences. I'm curious if there's any data or breakdown there that you can share.
Yeah, we're seeing that from builders now. I guess previously in crypto, most people just build like apps.
UWAs. Yeah, exactly. Or web
Yeah, we're
apps.
seeing a lot of teams that now go after mobile and will have mobile releases, and yeah, so I think that's definitely happening more and more with our teams that are building for a more general consumer, and a lot of the teams that were building previously were just building for the crypto degen, but we're seeing a lot of these teams now are focused on making sure like their products are accessible for a regular user, and even like early prediction markets like Poly Market or some of the other early ones were heavily focused on just the crypto person, but now have gone and now have mobile apps and are being used by regular people. And so we're seeing that happen more and more, that people are using apps and on mobile, and so that's definitely something we've witnessed.
I also think it's interesting just from like the bigger players, like when you think of the Apple App Store, they're letting in maybe more people actually use crypto, because there used to be a lot of restrictions, because they
Totally.
wanted people to purchase things through their app because they get their 30% rev share. So they wouldn't let people go to like an external website. So it's really interesting to see when people do move to mobile, they do have to play with more regulations and rules by the incumbent party. Just same with other like mobile insights, like they have to now think about things that they didn't have to in a web app, because there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
more intermediaries, but if they want to reach distribution, like they have to do it through the Apple App Store, and then from that point to like people feel safer to actually use it because they know Apple reviewed it to some degree.
Totally. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that the infra and tools are there, because I think a lot about with mobile, having like a headless on ramp becomes so much more important, because we all know that like Apple Pay experience is so nice and so clean. Getting to that with a mobile app is the best. And I think pairing it with an embedded wallet is even better. But that's kind of the style of experience that I think about, and it's interesting to hear that that's resonating in your ecosystem, especially given the security and the speed. properties.
Yeah, which is also just a great point that you brought up because I think a lot of people are now also getting embedded in iMessage. So people are trying to do like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
pay through iMessage, which is also crazy
Yeah.
that Apple allowed them to do that because I would never thought they would let like AI or just like payments kind of go through that. But it'd be interesting to see someday, like if Pair or other wallets could also be embedded in iMessage, and then you can send money that way. Maybe not because they have their own Apple Cash model, but would be really interesting to see, like if there
Mm-hmm.
would be innovation on that side, and then people would also build more in the Apple tech stack.
Mm-hmm. In the iMessage piece, are you seeing it? Because I'm reflecting on there's been a few agent launches happen on iMessage where, like I'm thinking of Poke, for example,
Mhm.
where you can just message Poke directly from iMessage. Are you seeing it leverage in that way with kind of Apple Cash embedded, or I'm curious if
I
that's
don't think
right.
I hooked up a credit card because I know for some of them it's like they want your actual, they want a card or they want a KYC. So I thought
Oh,
some of those were kind of weird. So I haven't put money with it because I'm again scared that they're just gonna like spend like crazy. But I think their goal is like, oh, you can order lunch or you can order groceries just by telling Poke like these are the things I want put in the DoorDash order. But then you also have to connect every account that you have. So I find that part a little dangerous. So I want to see some
yeah,
other people like use it a little bit more.
yeah,
But it is really interesting, like if we did get to a world where you just tell your, I don't know, your agent that these are the things I want you to buy, or if they kind of know a certain cadence or start remembering things about you, which is a great use case for walrus memory. Yeah, just like remembering your patterns and like what you want to do, because it's kind of like in Lyft, like it kind of knows where you've been before at certain times. It's like, oh, do you want to go back to Caltrain station? Because you typically look at it at this time, and I think it's super creepy, but it is helpful.
so helpful. Totally. Yeah, Poke. I've stopped messaging Poke just temporarily. I've been trying other tools, but it does keep sending you messages on and off, checking if you still want to use it. And so yeah, it's kind of a dystopian world we're all headed to. Very cool. This has been an awesome conversation. I want to round this out with one final question. We had the benefit of coming to the Suite office in PA, and it was just a really nice experience to see everybody in person. Um, Curious what your both of your favorite team moment or cultural moment has been being on the Suite team.
Yeah, I think our offsites are quite fun. So I think my favorite ones was probably like one of our recent offsites that we played like hockey and soccer against each other. So I would probably rank that as one of our favorite memories. We also went like surfing before on a previous
Wow.
offsite. So I think those physical fun activities that are some of my favorite memories with like the team.
Yeah. I heard, I wasn't at that offsite, but I heard people got injured playing both of those sports. So I think it's funny that it's David's favorite memory because of like that probably means he did not get injured during that
You
activity.
probably did well, David.
Yeah, I scored the most amount of goals. So
Oh,
There we
okay.
go.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. For my side, like I guess one from the team itself and one just from an experience on Sui. I wasn't here for it, but we did. They did like a hot wings challenge, like you know when you get all of the different hot sauces and you try to see who can like go to the most spicy one. And it was basically like one of the co-founders, Adani. He's Nigerian, so he's like, I can handle the heat better than all of you. So then it became kind of like a like, oh, my culture eats better spicy food than your culture.
Oh,
Um,
that's so fun.
and then
Uh-huh.
someone gave everyone milk, so it kind of like neutralized what actually who could tolerate the most spicy. But I think maybe our head of finance and then Arun, an engineer who's like Indian, like did pretty well, and Adani. So we're kind of like in a toss up between those three nations of who can handle spicy. Um, but then from just more of an ecosystem perspective, I think one of the best experiences was we did SweFest last year. It was kind of a celebration during kind of like Token 2049 in Singapore of everything that's happening on Sui. So people got to use like real world applications of their products and make it a fun experience, kind of like a crazy ADHD carnival, because there was like a robot petting zoo and you could do a noodle eating competition. And Kevin O'Leary did like a pitch contest judging experience. So it was just cool to show people, like in Singapore and that were related to crypto. It's like these are the cool things that you can do on Sui and only on Sui. And I think just kind of the show not tell aspect was really helpful because people like want to understand what's going on, but they're not going to like sit through a 30-minute talk. Like they want to see exactly what's happening and why they should care about it.
And I think now it's so easy to actually show and not tell. So very cool. Is there one planned this year? I'm actually, yeah, I want to come. That
Oh my
sounds so
God, wait,
fun.
let's talk afterwards. But we are
Yes.
doing, we're not calling it Sweet Fest this year. It's going to be our just annual base camp. That's going to happen
Okay.
co-located at Marina Bay Sands at Token 2049.
Okay. Oh, so fun. Yeah, let's talk after. I'm curious
Okay,
to
awesome.
learn more. All right. Well, thank you both for joining Parasocial. I'm excited to be a part of the Sweet ecosystem with Para and also more broadly um, in San Francisco. So thank you so much for your time today. This is a great chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you so
setting this up.
much. Thanks for having us.